I must say that when I serve liturgy with no one else in the altar, it's a clear-cut reason that we need help. So altar boys are really appreciated. I'm happy to have voices and singing, but boy, I run back and forth and do all sorts of things. So I look forward to help on Sunday, but we'll see you. The liturgy must be celebrated. Life must go on. So, of course, you know that we've been in this series of 4 weekday liturgies. We had liturgy for the Dormition of the falling asleep of Anne, the mother of the Theotokos. Yesterday, we commemorated St. Paraskevi, the martyr of Rome that comes to us from the 2nd century. Tomorrow, we'll assemble for the celebration of the memory of Irenicus of Elanthu, the monastic who comes to us from the 9th century in Asia Minor. And today, of course, we celebrate the memory of the unmercenary physician and great martyr Pantaleimon, which takes us back to the very opening years of the 4th century. So we know that he's a martyr under the Emperor Simeon. His reign comes to an end in 305. When we look at Pantaleimon, we find something which is very important. It's kind of a transitional period in the history of the church. We know that Pantaleimon's mother was Evola, who was a Christian, but his father was a pagan, kind of a righteous pagan, very hard-working, very well-known in the area. The mother's intention was to raise her son, originally Pantaleimon, emphasizing the idea of a lion, raise him as a Christian. She died very early, and the father sent the son, Pantaleimon, to a pagan school. He excelled in the school. He excelled so much that he was able to enter medical school very early. We know that he studied under Ephrosynos, who was one of the major sort of physicians of the time. He was such a good student that he came to the attention of the Emperor Maximian, who decided that he would make him his royal physician upon the completion of Pantaleimon's education. Things changed. And the major change was that there was a great persecution of Christians just prior to Pantaleon's completion of his education. And one of the survivors was Hermolaus, whom we commemorated yesterday. Hermolaus was a righteous figure. He was one who saw Pantaleimon every day and eventually invited into his home, and Hermolaus instructed him. He told him about Christ. He told him in such a compelling way that Pantaleimon was indeed moved to accept Christ. He heard about the power of Christ who is risen from the dead, who bestows the resurrection of all people. One day, Pantaleimon was out, and on his way home, he encountered a child who had just died, bitten by a major snake, and the child had died of the poison or the venom. Pantaleimon decided that he would put the notion of Christ to the test. And he said, "By the name of Christ, may this child be healed and raised from the dead, and the snake die." Immediately, the child began to choke, opened its eyes, and was restored to life, and the snake died. With that, Pantaleimon decided that he better go back to Hermolaus, the one who instructed him, and asked to be baptized. He was baptized. His name was changed to Pantaleimon, which means the All-Merciful One, and that's the name we know him as. So Pantaleimon then goes back to his father, who is still living, begins to tell him about Christ. The father is interested, but he needs proof. The proof came when Pantaleimon saw a blind man, and he healed him in the name of Christ. Once his father saw that, he too converted and was baptized. So we have that notion. The father died shortly thereafter that, and Pantaleimon was released from any family obligations. He sold his possessions, gave them to the poor, and he becomes an unmercenary physician. So we know about the unmercenary physicians when we celebrate the service of Holy Unction, which we normally do in our practice on Holy Wednesday. Some of the major saints that we invoke are the unmercenary physicians. And those are doctors, physicians who work without pay, work with and heal in the name of Christ, and maybe their only charge or price might be that people have to hear the good news of Christ. That's what Pantaleimon does. but he's a miracle worker in many ways through the name of Christ. He sort of attacks kind of what had been there before. He's able to heal, and the pagan physicians are very jealous. And they immediately turn him in to the Emperor Simeon. They're jealous of him, and he's called before the emperor. He's called and told that he could deny Christ, offer sacrifice to the pagan gods, and there'll be no problems. Pantaleimon loudly confesses Christ. And when the emperor becomes upset, Pantaleimon says, what you need to do is bring a man who's very ill here. Your physicians, the pagan physicians, can attempt to heal him, and then I will heal him. So we know the pagan physicians are not able to heal the man. Pantaleimon, invoking the name of Christ, heals this man. The emperor is so furious, the man who's healed is immediately executed. He's on the list of saints too. And what we have basically is at that point we have a number of tortures. We have a number of ways that Pantaleimon is to be killed. One is thrown to wild beasts, and he tames them all. Finally, the emperor orders Pantaleimon beheaded, and when they attempt to behead him, the sword becomes like plastic and doesn't work because Pantaleimon is completing his prayers. When he completes his prayers, you have these soldiers who were set to execute him don't want to do it anymore. They're saying, great is the God of Pantaleimon, great is Christ, the God of Saint Pantaleimon. And Pantaleimon tells him they have to be obedient, they have to do their duty. And at that point, he's beheaded. So we know that he's martyred. He's very important. I mean, today's service was a bit longer today, emphasizing the importance. Many of these weekday services don't have a gospel during the Orthros or Matins. This one does. This one's a little bit longer. There's more hymnography, emphasizes it's important. He is one of the mercenary physicians. He's one we invoke for healing. So remember his memory today. We indeed look at both his witness, his testimony to the faith, and the power he had working through Christ. So he provides an example for us of steadfastness to Christ, accepting him as the very center of our lives, and we indeed celebrate his memory. So I would say Kronia Pala to anyone who celebrates their feast today. We greet them. Friends of yours that are Pantaleimon, call them and greet them. Please come forward and receive the Antitaron.